Before we call Todd Perry, or while we try to get him on the phone, we're going to run this video of the Albert Pujols Foundation that we did.
Okay.
It's about a minute long. It's
Okay.
great. Give us people a little insight while we get Todd on the phone. You going to roll that, Gabe? Thank you.
Southern California. Crystal Rolling. Todd Perry. Press 6.
Todd,
Yes,
can you hear us?
I can.
All right, great. Thank you so much for joining us. You have Chris Weber here, Andy Martinez, and
Hey, Todd.
Jesus Ortiz.
Hey, Todd.
Thanks for having me.
No,
Hey,
thank
guys.
you. We just ran a little video on Albert Pujols' foundation, so this is the perfect segue for you, man. Can you just tell us about it and how you got involved and how Albert started this and why he started it?
Wow, it's been 14 years now. We started in 2005. Albert has a daughter with Down syndrome, and actually yesterday was World Down Syndrome Day. So I hope if you knew someone with Down syndrome, you gave them a big hug yesterday. But we started it just to try to fill some of the gaps in the lives and services of people with Down syndrome that, quite honestly, we're missing. And the second half of our mission really has to do with the Dominican Republic, where Albert grew up. He grew up in poverty and has never really forgotten where he came from. So we do a lot of work with medical mission teams, and we have some humanitarian stuff that we do as well. We have a mentoring program with kids through baseball. We have a sewing school that's in one of the bateys, one of the slums there, and we do some building projects. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the Dominican Republic as well.
That's great. What I love about Albert is how involved he is in everything. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah. He's hands on. I mean, he's not one of these guys that just give direction at the board meeting and disappears. I mean, he goes with us to the Dominican Republic and works with the with the doctors and helps us put together policy and things that he really wants to see. I mean, the baseball league that was all him. Wanting to kind of reach these boys and mentor them in what it means to be a man, and what that means to your family and to your spouse and to your kids and things like that. So he's definitely hands-on, and having a daughter with Down syndrome, he's really tapped into that community. And he we do a couple of proms a year. The one here in St. Louis last year, wow, we probably had 700 people with Down syndrome here. He tries to dance with them all. He is just so locked into the populations that we serve. I mean, he really is a great ambassador.
I don't think a lot of people who aren't in St. Louis really appreciate just how much this man has impacted the entire Caribbean. And when I was in St. Louis as a sports columnist there, I did a story the first year that Carlos Martinez took over the mission that Albert let him take the medical mission, and I spoke to a lot of those doctors who've been going on those missions with Albert, and it's so amazing how many lives they've helped save and how much medical care they've given to people who otherwise wouldn't. Can you tell us a story or two of the most vivid memories that you have of those medical missions? Because I want people to understand just how much of an impact these missions make.
Oh, wow. I mean, How long have we got? I mean, I can honestly.
We got 4 hours.
I
We
could
have
feel
4
the
hours.
afternoon. Wow, I could feel that, and that's no exaggeration. It's just absolutely amazing the lives that are changed and touched and saved through the work that we do. I'll just give one example. There was a young boy that was in Bate Bienvenido who had he had a heart condition, and when we and it was pretty complicated issue where they really couldn't do the surgery in Santo Domingo, and we had a pediatrician that's the captain of our medical team that examined the young man, and we did an echo and some things for him. But when we came back later, and it was probably maybe it was a year later that we came back, she re-examined the young man, and he was 7 years old, and she kind of pulled the team together and said, hey, just so you know, the deterioration of this boy from the time I saw him last to now, he won't be here when we get back.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be another 6 months or a year, he won't. And I just want to know if that's okay. And that's all she said. And, we just kind of looked at each other and said, no, that's not okay. And so, everybody went into high gear, and, the Pujols Foundation, Albert, Jan, there were several people on. We got the best heart surgeon in St. Louis, pediatric heart surgeon in St. Louis, a man named Chuck Huddleston, donated the surgery. We had the hospital. I mean, there were so many people that stepped up. We were able to bring this young man to the United States. He had his heart surgery. His heart's repaired. Last time I was in Bienvenido, he was playing soccer. I mean, it's just, it literally saved this young man's life. And there's so many of those examples. I mean, there was a young man with cancer in his femur that we brought to the United States, and they put a prosthetic bone in his leg. And, last time I saw him, he's doing great, cancer-free. So many, I mean, the trip you talked about with Carlos Martinez, Albert and Carlos were there in Puerto Plata, where Carlos grew up. There was a young lady who had leukemia that Carlos ended up bringing, and through his foundation, Tsunami Waves, they were able to get her a bone marrow transplant, and she's cancer-free. I mean, over and over and over and over, there's these incredible stories of how, our medical teams have been able to identify these, people who are hurting or in these cases dying, and being able to bring them help.
Yeah, I wrote several columns on the young lady who came with Carlos Martinez, and I talked to Carlos Martinez about that. And what I admired the most, or was most in awe of, was just how you guys rallied the entire St. Louis medical community. For the young lady, it wasn't just one hospital. It
Right.
was multiple hospitals. And you talk about the young boy, you get a doctor to donate the surgery. And this isn't just one guy. This is one man rallying an entire community for good. I love it. I have such admiration for you guys.
Well, and I think those are the times when the celebrity, lack of a better term, really comes into play, because Albert and I think Albert and Carlos and a lot of these guys understand that they're given this platform for a reason, and there's good and bad with the celebrity of that, but there are times when it's priceless. And this is one of those times where you can use Albert's name, or you can use Carlos Martinez's name, and you can go, and there are people who will listen. You can get an appointment with, the president of the board of a hospital that you normally wouldn't have access to if you didn't have that name on your business card. And I think that is where, guys like Albert and Carlos and so many of these guys that are doing this, it really comes in to be able to, like you say, pull together resources to make something like this happen.
What we were showing photos earlier of some of the things Albert has done. And the smile on the kids' faces when Albert is hugging them or carrying them or whatever are priceless. What does that mean to you, and what does it mean to Albert when he can put a smile on those kids' faces?
Well, I mean, it's everything. I mean, let's be honest. That's what we're put on this world for. I mean, if we can make someone's life easier or make someone's life better, there's nothing better. I mean, there really is nothing, and I think we're designed that way. I think we're created to serve each other because, you know, I think of, and I say this all the time, you know, Albert, you know, he in the off season he could do anything, and when I say anything, I mean literally anything we could think of that he could possibly do. He has the resources and the connections to do that. But the things that he chooses to do is to go to the Dominican Republic and, you know, go into these bates. These kids have lice and parasites and scabies, but he's got them on his lap and he's loving them. You know, kids with Down syndrome. I mean, he's flown across the country to come to one of our events, get back on a plane and fly back. I mean, he did it a couple of months ago. We have a basketball game here where, you know, kids with Down syndrome play basketball, and Albert, you know, it's Albert's All-Stars, and Albert has never missed that game. And this year, he literally got on a plane, flew to St. Louis. Immediately after the game was over, he got back on a plane, flew back out to California. But that's Albert. I mean, it's the you know, and it's just to be able to, like you say, put that smile on the face of someone that wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise.
And the points of light that George H.W. Bush had, what he talked about the president. When President Bush, he was one of the people who were invited to the when they invited the athletes when he was in line in state, correct? He went with Tony.
Yeah, I don't know that for sure, but I know that, you know, I mean, Albert is constantly honored for the work he does. And you know, and if you know Albert, I mean, he's extremely humble, and you know, there are times when he's just like, you know, well, why do they want to talk to me? And it's just, you know, I don't think he really understands the weight or the importance of the work he does. And I will say this, you know, as far as awards, I mean, if you go to his home right now, over the fireplace in the center of the mantle, it's not the MVP trophies, it's not the Silver Sluggers or the Hank Aaron Award, which are all wonderful. On the center, with the big spotlights pointing at it, is the Roberto Clemente Award. And if you ask Albert, out of everything he's accomplished in his career, what, without hesitation, he always says the Roberto Clemente Award, because he really does believe everything culminates to what you do off the field. It's so much more important than what you can do on the field.
It's funny you mentioned that for two reasons. Yesterday we ran a video about Rod Carew and how when people come over to his house, the first trophy he shows is the Roberto Clemente Award too. And one of our viewers commented. He said, "I wonder how much of an impact Clemente had on players like Pujols who serve others."
Just answered it.
Yeah.
Oh, huge.
Yeah. It's
huge.
Everything. Yeah.
How can you not?
Yeah. Was Albert like this from day one? Like, where did this come from? Is that a family thing coming up from the Dominican, or just how he grew up and he wanted to make a difference for those who were less fortunate, like he was?
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because, and I don't know if I can plug another show, but
plug
Graham
away,
Bensinger
Todd.
Graham Bensinger was in at spring training when I was there a couple of weeks ago, and he's actually did an interview with Albert, and I was kind of sitting on the sidelines listening to that interview, and I heard stories that I've never heard before, and that was actually one of them where Graham was kind of pushing Albert on, where does this come from? And you know, one of the things that Albert was talking about was, I guess, from his grandfather, who was a huge influence on Albert, and was, you know, and he said, you know, he was like the catalyst that had everybody in the family playing baseball, because he loved baseball. His mother, his father, and just how they treated other people. how they would, bring food to people who were hungry in the neighborhood, and how they were always people who gave back even when they didn't have anything to give. And I think that, that made a huge impact on Albert growing up, having nothing, living in poverty, but yet your family is always open, and live life with an open hand, even when you have very little. And I think that, growing up that way, it really influenced him that this is the way you live your life. This is the way you should, we should treat each other. And then, of course, with success, then that has, created the foundation and the amount of work we do. So, I think it really goes back to his childhood.
That's great.
Because of the craziness of the baseball schedule, this will be the first time Albert returns to St. Louis since he joined the Angels. And how would you describe what's about to happen? What do you expect? What type of reception, and how crazy will those? Is it 3 games or 2 games going to be?
Yeah, it's 3 games. It's and actually we have a suite that we've already booked for the 21st, which is that Friday night when he walks out on the field. And because I don't even know that Albert's really thought through this completely, but I mean the last time he stood on that field, they won the World Championship. It was 2011, Game 7. The last time he walked off that field, a world champion, and this will be the first time he puts his foot back on that field as a player. And I mean the weight of that alone, the history, the importance of the game, and his his time in St. Louis, and what that means to the fan base here, and what that means to baseball. I don't think I think it'll hit him then, but I don't think it's really hit him yet.
You guys do 125 events a year. Are you going to try to sneak in about 11 in that 3-game series while Albert's home?
You know what? You caught me. I've already hit him up, but I think he's been hit up so much already that because as a matter of fact, he made the comment that this is probably going to be busier than it was when St. Louis hosted the All-Star game, I guess in 2009. And I know how busy he was then, with the media and the scheduling, and people, everybody wanted a piece of him. And I think that's, I would be really, really surprised if, he's going to do anything special, because I just think everybody's just going to want a piece of him, and rightly so. I mean, this is a pretty historic moment for all of us.
We did a story on him with his 600th home run in his shoes that he sent to the Hall of Fame. They have the initials of all his children and his wife.
Right.
Just talk to me about how important family is to Albert, and why it's so important, what he teaches these kids as well, because obviously he's given them everything that they have and could ever want in this world, but what does he teach them, for values, and how important that is to him?
I mean, if you know Albert, his family is everything, and that is one of the things that in the off season, I know that his family is going to come first. And when we have events and we have programs and we have things where we need him, we try to work around things that we know that he's going to, with one of Sophie's, gymnast competitions, or one of AJ's, things that he's doing with golf, or if we know that's on the calendar, we know not even to ask, because his family's going to come first. But I think as far as what he's teaching them, these kids are, and I'm not just saying this to say this, but they are stellar human beings. They are, AJ is, and if you look honestly, I'll take AJ for example. He's 18 years old. He has every excuse to be the world's biggest brat. He could be, he really does. But he is one of the most humble, kindest, compassionate, I mean, this kid is just amazing, and anyone that knows him will tell you that. You know, he matter of fact, he did last year. He on his own, he did a golf clinic for individuals with Down syndrome, and he spent the day out there, and he had a bunch of his, you know, people that were on his golf team come out and help him because he just has a heart for people. And
awesome.
Those are things that, yeah, you know, that's a DNA thing. I mean, you don't teach that. And that's one of the things that Albert and Dee Dee have done really well with these kids is kind of setting the bar immediately to say, you know what, this is the family we are. This is how we conduct ourselves. This is how we, you know, and then letting them develop that on their own. And, yeah, they're across the board. They're just really amazing people.
Yeah, when we talked a while back, you kind of set the tone with one quick story that you said in the off season after one of his MVP years, I believe, you walked into his house and he was carrying the laundry upstairs. And that just
Yeah.
speaks volume to who Albert Pujols is.
Yeah. Yeah, there was and there was another story where I think he was I called Dee Dee or something, and she goes, yeah, you know, one of the kids got sick and he's changing the bed. And, you know, and I got this visual picture of, you know, Albert cleaning up puke, which I guess, you know, all dads do. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's just kind of like, you know, well, I guess, you know, he's a dad, and that's what we all do it from time to time, right?
That's great, Todd. Last question. What's coming up for the Pujols Foundation? What are you guys working on? What are you most proud of?
Wow, there's a lot on the agenda. Again, we're going to do another 100+ events this year, and it's, you know, it's all about serving others. It's all about, you know, I mean, our mission, faith, family, and others, and that's it. I mean, we're going to live out our faith. We're going to be talking about you know, what's important to us, and we're going to just be serving people. We have we have a few sweet tickets for people, and they're not cheap, but we have a few sweet tickets for those people who want to join us for Albert's return. And then we also have a few tickets for that Sunday. They're not sweet tickets for that Sunday here in St. Louis. And then we have our golf tournament coming up here in St. Louis. That's July 29th. And then we have our golf tournament in LA, which is August 29th. So hopefully a lot of people can join us.
That's great. Thank you, Todd. I really appreciate the time that you have spent with us. Congratulations on the foundation and all the work you guys are doing. It must be easy to wake up every day with a smile on your face.
Well, hey, it's you know, we are blessed. We are blessed to do what we do, and thank you guys for giving us a platform to talk about it. We really do appreciate it.
No, thank you. I've been to your tournament a couple of times. I love it. I love what it represents, and I love having been in St. Louis and covering the Pujols Foundation, and also what Carlos Martinez has done with what Pujols has let him do.
We anytime you want to come back on the show, we would love to have you.
Absolutely. Good luck, especially with that series in St. Louis, trying to get some time from him.
Tell me about it. Hey, guys, thank you again. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You
Thanks,
too.
Todd.